Today, our conversation is about
Your boss
volunteers.
in
As you
Boston.
know, we're going to go through four different parts: recruitment, training, retention, and care. And so, our hope is we'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes in each group, and you guys chime in any place that you want to. But before we do that, I want to introduce the people that are on our panel today. So, as I introduce y'all, if you're on the panel, if you would wave so people can see who you are. So I have Trent Ovell. So there's Trent. Trent is the children's pastor at Sent Church in Plano, Texas. Been serving at Sent Church for 2 years and has been in kids ministry for 3.5 years, right, Trent? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And then we have Kaylee Wilkerson. Kaylee's very close to me. I live in South Carolina. Kaylee lives in the next state over in North Carolina. She serves as the children's pastor at New Covenant Church in Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, and has served in the same church, correct, Kaylee, for 9 years. Okay, awesome. She's also the president of her district, North Carolina West, correct? So yeah, I love Kaylee. She's amazing. And then my friend Dima is at the top. So Dima is the founder and creator of wearekidman.com. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to his site, but if you haven't, this is a plug for Dima. It's amazing. So Dima has spent the last 27 years serving kids in on three different continents, and now he serves kids and leaders by creating incredible resources for leaders and families through We Are Kidman. So I'm so excited to have my friend Dima with us today. And then Godfrey Watson. Godfrey, wave at us. Godfrey is in Florida. Godfrey is a principal, so he's at his principal's desk right now, right, Godfrey? He is the children's pastor at Park Place Wesleyan Church in Pinellas Park, Florida. And he told me the other day he has served in kids ministry for 21 years and has been on staff for 2 years. So he brings valuable insight to us. So we're so excited to have you guys as our panelists. And so I kind of gave them instructions. They're going to chime in as we talk through it. So we're going to just jump right in and talk about our first topic of volunteer recruitment. So I'll kind of kick it all off and then you guys can kind of jump in. So one of the greatest concerns that and difficulties that I hear and I had as a kids pastor was always about volunteers. Volunteers was always that topic of discussion. So I would say all of us would echo since COVID, we've seen this big drop off of volunteers. We're struggling finding enough people to fill our holes in lots of ministry areas. I have this told to me all the time, and trying to fill those spots feels very daunting. So, this is the first question I'm going to put out here. So, I think this would probably be a question most of you would ask. So, to our panelists, what's the magic formula for getting volunteers? Or is there one? Maybe a better way to say that is there best practices for volunteer recruitment? Like, what does that look like, and how can you help us navigate that question? Just jump in.
Yep. Let me jump in. I think when you're a children's pastor, you'll never have enough volunteers. Really, no matter how hard you pray, how hard you work, you beg, you threaten, you bribe. It just people's lives change. You can have them today. The seasons may change tomorrow. And now you have another hole to fill. And just like Jesus said, you'll always have poor among you. It's the same applies to us. Like you'll always have a lack of volunteers. And I think it just helps to have that mindset, like, this is not me. Like, it's not something wrong with me, because so often we compare ourselves to others. But something that has been helpful to me was, first of all, changing the language. So whenever I would recruit from a large stage, I would be given only 3 minutes. I would always recruit for 1 school year, because people need to know that there is a definite beginning and there is a definite end to what they're asked to do. So just psychologically, emotionally, it takes off a pressure. But I would never say I need you for 1 school year, because 1 school year sounds long and intimidating. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what is a school year? It's basically 36 or 37 weeks. All right. And then most of my volunteers were every other Sundays. So whenever I make my announcement, I say, I need 25 people before August 15 that would commit to serving the next 18 Sundays. And so all of a sudden, we diffuse that, first of all, vague, like if it's like I just need volunteers, well, for the rest of my life. No, it's for 17 Sundays. It's actually a full school year, but we don't want to scare them with a school year. We just say 17 Sundays. It seemed to help. And a second thing that worked for me was I always recruited families. I had a very family-oriented approach. So whenever a husband would come to me or a wife and say, hey, I want to check it out, I want to serve, I say, that's awesome. Do you think your wife or do you think your husband may want to join you? Because I said, I want kids to see couples serving together. She doesn't have the personality. She doesn't like to be in front of. It's okay. We need people like we just. You guys will have so much fun together, and we want our kids to see Christian marriages, Christian couples. So just give it a thought. And so many times, only one person would come to the booth to sign up, and I would get 3 volunteers because it's now a wife, a husband, and a teenage daughter. So that's been helpful to me.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a follow-up question to that real quick, Dima? If you put it out there for 17 weeks or 18 weeks, what was the percentage that the people stayed? Like, were you having to do another whole recruitment plan after that?
Yeah. Yeah, let me just give you a quick overview of the system. So I would get people for 17 Sundays, which is September through May. And then I would dismantle, like I would send them all away, like you take your break. And it was always the scariest thing I would do in my life because we have a well-oiled machine, but I knew they needed a break. They needed time with grown-ups. And that actually brought back about 85, 90% of people. And some of them said, we keep serving because you do give us summer off. And so what it did now in the summer, I have 12 weeks. And so I have an appeal to the church and say, hey, can you serve not just the kids, but also your brothers and sisters that have been working hard for the last school year? And I'm not asking for the summer because we know people travel on vacation. Nobody will be able to give me 11 or 12 Sundays. So say, if you can give me 3 or 4 Sundays spread out throughout the summer, it will be a huge help to me and to other volunteers that are taking a break. And it was a lot easier to get people like that. And what happened this summer, 3 or 4 Sundays that people gave became like that little Costco sample. You know, when you go to Costco, they give you a sample and you were not planning on buying it, but now it's in your cart because you tasted it and you loved it. So not only did I have about 90% of my old volunteers come back in September, I had about 25% of people that tasted the summer like, wow, this is great. I loved it. I connected with those kids. And so they want to stay. So that worked very well. So we had a rhythm, one school year, summer off, but then in the summer we get new people, which was a big headache because in the summer we ended up needing 3 times more volunteers than in a school year because they only gave us 3 or 4 Sundays. But that exposed new people to children's ministry. And when, even if they did not choose to stay in children's ministry for the next school year, which there was no pressure, no strings attached, I had a questionnaire, can we count on you to be a sub in the school year? And every single person who volunteered in the summer said, yes, count me in. So now I'm going into a school year and I give my regular volunteers, here is a list of 5 subs for your age group. And if you have an emergency, if you have something unexpected, you don't call me, you call these 5 people. And so we relied on those people throughout the school year, and they were very happy to help in that capacity.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so helpful. Any other panelists want to answer that question?
I was just going to echo the small ask, or like for us, I have found one-on-one recruitment is the best. We do announcements from the stage. I typically don't. We've also learned that it starts with your lead. And so I have a very good relationship with my lead. I know that that's not the case for everybody in every church out there, unfortunately, at times. But we have a great relationship. And so I can go to him, like, we're starting 3 services in a few weeks, and I'm like, hey, I need you to make a vision push, not a plea and not a beg, but a vision push. And we do get some from that. But I have found that if I go to people, or if volunteers go to volunteers, then that is helpful. But when we ask, then I say, hey, I need you just once a month in the nursery for this service. I'm very specific, because then people can see themselves in that role. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, when I sign up to serve, I'm signing up for every Sunday. And for us, that's not the case. It's like, I need you just once a month. And they're like, oh, I could do that. So I think just putting a really strong detail out there of like, hey, this is what we need. Can you see yourself there? And something else that we have done, that we have found, and it's that has been really helpful. And this is not a new thing. I mean, we stole it from somewhere, I'm sure. But we call it Shadow Sunday. And so we just give people an opportunity to literally just come and shadow. They just observe. Have there been times that it's been very hard for me to not just go ahead and use them that Sunday because somebody called out or whatever, but I have to be really mindful of like, nope, they're not a volunteer that day. They're literally just coming to observe. And so we do one of those in the spring and one of those in the fall for all of our areas of ministry. And then it really is, it's just, hey, you come, if you want to observe just elementary, do that. If you're like, hey, I could see myself anywhere, then we rotate them throughout the service. They just kind of pop in. And we've seen once people get to that point that they're like, yeah, I'll sign up for Shadow Sunday, almost all of them have said, okay, I just wanted to see what it looked like here. I'm willing to jump on board. But sometimes that gets the wheels spinning for people. That's been a great on-ramp for us.
I agree with you with the being personal with them. And that's what I try to do. I really try to get out in the before service, after service, just talking to people. And then we do a ministry fair at our church. So I'm there just showing off our stuff, talking to the kids. So I encourage the volunteers also that I have to, when they see parents, when they see anyone, just talk to them and just share their experience with other people, potential people that we think might help us in children's ministry. But I also give them a time frame. So my volunteer know, okay, I'm on 3rd Sunday of every month. So I try to do that, and we try to get a 2-month um, group of volunteers so that if there is a drop off, we can fill that spot. But they always know, okay, I know I'm 3rd Sunday. I know I'm 2nd Sunday. And we always give them a questionnaire also. What area are they strong in? What area they want to work in? So they have an idea of what they're getting into. And we always make the children ministry. We don't do a volunteer Sunday. I love that shadow Sunday. So I think I'm going to infuse that. But we do let them come back and see what we're doing. And we always make it accessible to them. And then we bribe, we do everything that we can, but we do try to make ourselves accessible to them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump to another question. Does anyone on the call want to ask a question about volunteer recruitment?
I just had a follow-up question for that Shadow Sunday. How do you do that with, sorry, my video is not working. I don't know how to get it on. But how do you do that with like the need for background checks and security and all of that? Because that's been my big battle
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Yeah, to be honest, it's something that I didn't think about at first. Like the very first time we did it, like because they were paired with at least 2 volunteers in the classroom the very first time. I just honestly didn't even think about it. But now I still say, hey, listen, like whether you decide to serve or not, that's okay. But because you'll be in the kids' room that Sunday, then we do go ahead and background check them beforehand. So then when they get to the training portion, which I know we're going to get to, in a little bit too, like theirs is already done and it's fine. But for us, like the system that we use, and I'm sure there's probably cheaper systems out there, it just integrates what we do. But anyway, like the cost is just worth it to us. So we just go ahead and say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and run this. Now, for some of our other areas of ministry, we don't necessarily go ahead and run a background check for the Shadow Sunday, but for kids ministry, I've started adding that into, and most people are totally cool with it. They get it, you know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions about volunteer recruitment? I'll kick another one off. So what do you do to attract volunteers to your ministry? So like someone from the outside is looking in and they're looking at your volunteer team, and what are they looking at and saying, I want to be a part of that team? Like what does that look like for someone who is not serving in your space to say, I want to serve in that space? Can you answer that?
Yeah. I mean, connecting it to a vision is great because people want to be a part of something, rather than, hey, I need you to fill a slot on a Sunday. That's what we need, but that's not going to draw someone in. So what I like to do when I'm meeting with a new volunteer, I share our vision. So like the vision of Sent Church and Sent Kids is to help kids discover Jesus and live on mission. So whenever anybody is interested in serving in kids ministry, I always lead with that. Hey, you're here to help them discover Jesus and live on mission for them, whatever that looks like. And I love to tell stories too. Stories of a volunteer that is like crushing it, or how they built a relationship with the kid and how that changed, the kid's life, or whatever that looks like, because then that draws people in instead of just, oh, you need a small group leader. No, I'm here to build a relationship with the kid and to help them discover Jesus and figure out who Jesus is, and make a life change for eternity. So whenever I meet with new volunteers or potential volunteers, I love to just lead with stories and lead with vision. And I like to do that first. I will add, like, when I am, if there's a potential volunteer, I love to, make that personal touch, not just stage announcements and all that stuff. But I always like to make the statement like, hey, just know by meeting with me, you aren't agreeing to serve. Like, we're just going to talk about it first. Because people are always willing to have a free lunch, free coffee, I mean, I have a budget for that. I know not all churches can and do that, but I'm thankful to do that. So I give them lunch, coffee, dinner, whatever that is, and just say, hey, let's just have a conversation. And then share that vision and then see where it goes from there.
I love the stories, stuff. It's good.
Yeah.
Any other questions about volunteer recruitment? I don't want to rush through that. One last one that I had on my list was, is there a time frame where you do your little shadow Sunday or your tour or your coffee date or whatever, and they say, I want to serve? Like, what is the time frame that they should be all done, like that they're ready to be in the room? Is there a time frame that we put on that? Do you know what I'm asking?
I don't know that I have a specific, like, in 2 weeks they're serving, that kind of thing. But I mean, if people are ready to jump on board, get them on board. Like, the more people sit, they have more time to think and they have time to think about all the reasons they shouldn't do this. Has been my experience. And so, kind of what somebody else was saying, like a 2-month window, like we schedule our volunteers 2 months at a time. And so it might be like, hey, listen, like I'm going to use you as a fill-in because we all need fill-ins all the time. Like a fill-in, kind of a sub until the new schedule comes out, like if it's early, but we're really strategic on like those shadow Sundays, that those are right before we build a new schedule. Because if people are willing and they've hit all the boxes to get to the point where like I'm serving, then get them serving in a room. I mean, it's as quick as you can, in my opinion.
I agree with you. What I usually do when someone wants to volunteer, I let them stay in the classroom with someone for maybe a couple of times. So 2 weeks with different people, they come in and they share or they do whatever. And then I kind of speak with my other volunteers. What do you think? And sometimes the 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 nursery is not for them. They like elementary. So I kind of feel them out as they go in, and they'll tell you if the nursery is not for them. And so as they come, but I don't have a time frame when they start, because once we do the background check, I kind of talk to other people about them. I do my own research, and as I get from other people, I said, okay, this person will be a good fit. Let's see how it works out. And so I don't have a time frame. I just kind of feel them out once their background check clears.
Mhm.
So in just kind of trying to watch time and make sure we can hit other things, is there any other questions in volunteer recruitment that we want to touch on before we jump to volunteer training? Some awesome stuff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you do bring it out to your church, how do you cast vision for your ministry to bring people into that?
Great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah, vision is something that's it just has to be born in your heart. It's a combination of your experience, of your understanding of God's heart for kids, of what you've seen God do in children and through children. So it's kind of like a soup of some ingredients, but what it does, it results in this fire that's inside of you, and that's what people will be catching. It's your passion and your fire. It's contagious, and they want to be a part of it. And it's kind of like God places a spark, and then you nurture it through life. What you want to do is just make it clear. Like if you join children's ministry, yes, you might be changing diapers. Yes, you might be picking up goldfish crackers that've been stepped on. Yes, you might be wiping some runny noses and telling stories and playing games, but that's not why we do what we do. The heart behind it is for children, for the love of God to be tangible for children, for the family of God to be real to them. The church is not just a place. It's people that know them, that care, that challenge them. And I think every one of us has a slightly unique flavor of the passion and vision that we bring. And it's beautiful. And what it does when you share it, and if God already has his hand on somebody, your vision, your passion, the way it comes out of you will stir their heart. And that's where the pressure is off of us. Like we don't need to be chasing after people, twisting people's hands. We are not competing with production team. We are not competing with youth department or any other of the ministries. We really want to communicate. This is what God put on my heart. This is what we are all about. Does anything stir inside of you in response? But it's something that's should be nurtured by you in response to what God has done in you.
I love that answer. Thank you, Dima, for that. Let's jump into volunteer training. So lots of things that we could do here, and this is probably more systematized than anything. So I'll kick off the question, and then y'all, please do not be afraid to ask questions. So I want to make sure your questions are answered. So, kind of just let's make a list. What are some non-negotiables that should be in your volunteer training packets or in your meetings? What are non-negotiables?
I mean, the biggest one for me is a background check. I mean, I think that's pretty clear across the board. But I just think too, like, just sitting down and having some sort of training with me, whether that's like there's 3 or 4 of them jumping on board at the same time and you can pull them all together and then they can meet each other and do all of those sorts of things. So it's whether it's a group or just individual, like, and I do like to echo what Trent said, like I try my best to treat them as a person first. Like, hey, and especially if they're new to our church, like, hey, how did you even hear about our church? And I did this a couple weeks ago, and this girl, like, she's super sweet, and we knew her from anyway. I won't. Stories can be long, but um, she told me how she ended up finding our church, and it was the most unique, funny story ever. And I was like, if I would not have stopped for just a minute, because I'm very systematic, type A, let's get to the point. But we're also called to be shepherds, and we're shepherds of our volunteers. And so sometimes we just need to stop for a minute and say, hey, you know what? Let me get to know you. And then that creates that personal connection so that it does make training. It does make all of the other things easier. So that's one of the main reasons I like to meet with people too, is because, like, yeah, we are kids pastors and in kids ministry, but we've got to talk to the adults and get to know them and create community with them too. And so, yeah, a meeting with me, and then a background checks. That's pretty standard.
What else would we add to that?
Yeah, I always had a very minimal approach to training because if you look at it, a typical Sunday morning, what, an hour, maybe an hour, 15 minutes, and you really are high-fiving, playing games, picking up stuff from the floor, and telling stories, turning on TV or microphone, turning it off, keeping kids engaged, keeping them safe. So I always just wanted people to serve in the strength that they already have. If they're a parent or grandparent, uh, they don't require a college degree to be there on Sunday morning. It's really their heart that I was after. I did have some trainings, and what I discovered, I was a little bit like Saul putting on my armor on David. Like, this is how I go to battle. Like, this is what I need, like, to have an engaging presentation or this or that. And then I realized I was creating clones, and it necessarily did not fit people. So I had to strip down, like, what is Sunday morning? Like, does success look like? And I realized if people bring their heart and they come prepared, and they're in tune with the Holy Spirit and in tune with children, then ministry will take place. And so we stripped down the training. They needed to know what to do, like evacuations, when there is a gunshot, when there is a blackout, no power. So all of that stuff, even when we introduced flat screen TVs into every room and all our videos were on TVs, we needed to give them a quick training on how to operate them. But other than that, like, just bring your heart and come prepared. And that's it.
I kind of also tone it down, but I try to the non-negotiable about touching children, about hugs, about you know, bathrooms. I try to make those things clear because I think what I tell them is, even though you're a volunteer, I have to protect the ministry and also you. So I do stress that part with them because I think that's important. And we don't want, I would feel really bad if one of my volunteers does something that I did not tell them to be careful about. So I'm very, very clear about stuff like that, only because it's then that's more than just the children ministry. It goes further than that. So those things I'm very clear about, and non-negotiable about careful touching stuff like that. So those I do stress.
Mm.
What questions might you have about volunteer training? Anyone have anything? Questions that you're kind of like, I don't really know how to do this, or whatever your thoughts are.
I've got a question. If you think through like a more, I try to do like one kind of formal training, like a more in-depth thing a year. What are the things that you cover maybe during those time frames?
Yeah, so we just did one, actually not that long ago, because we shifted a bunch of stuff. We changed curriculum and all that. We had a lot going on, so we were like, we just need to do a training. But yeah, I like to share with vision, lead with vision. Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why. And then something I did that was really cool that everybody was like, they thought it was the best part of the training. I did a little section. I called it like learn from the experts. I just asked a few of my like rockstar volunteers in our different areas, like one for nursery and preschool and one for elementary, like, hey, would you just share what you do on a Sunday morning? Because you guys are awesome. And so they shared just practical tips that I never would have thought of or whatnot, because they're rock stars. They're like, if I could clone my volunteers, I would clone them, because then I'd never have a volunteer problem because they're great. But can't do that. But yeah, so I had them share just, hey, learn from the experts, and then they also get to see other people in their role doing that as well. And so it's not just coming from the pastor. Like, oh, these are volunteers just like me. And then I also did a training on special needs as well. I thought that was important and needed. We don't have a big special needs community in our church, but I still wanted our volunteers to get that information. So I just found we have a guy in our church who teaches special needs at a high school. So I was like, hey, will you just come and share? And my volunteers thought that section, just like that learn from the expert session, was the best part of the training.
I love that so much, because you're equipping your volunteers to lead in that moment, and so I love that. Any other questions about that? One in the chat. Do any of you have a volunteer manual that you can share, or a place to download a sample?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm writing mine.
Jackie, what we'll do is we'll take that and I'll send out an email afterwards. Oh, Chris just shared it in the chat. He's fast.
That.
So if you want to share it in the chat and download it, or I can share some stuff afterward, that'd be awesome. Great question. Anything else about volunteer training? It's important.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
What are some of the other topics? I mean, we talked about general, vision casting and things, but if you want to have our goal, and my goal is to have volunteer trainings every other month for the size church we are. I think that's a lot. When I was on with the last, no, I do so many of these different cohorts. I was trying to remember a different cohort I was on. They were basically saying you should be doing one every month, and that seems like but so you can't cover the same thing every month or even every other month. So what are some of the other topics you might cover? And one thing I was particularly interested in is, so I have some volunteers that are really great, really love the kids, but maybe don't have the best behavior management techniques. Does anyone have any training specifically they've done about behavior management?
If there's other people on the call too, outside of our panelists, that have stuff too to answer some of these, feel free to jump in, y'all.
Yeah, when it comes to training, I think the biggest factor is time, because volunteers already commit to being there on Sunday morning, Wednesday night. So to bring them to a church building for one more training, if you get 25% attendance, that probably would be a success. But if it's something important, it will not permeate the culture of your volunteers. So something that I've done, every Sunday, my volunteers would show up 30 minutes before the start. So that was just an agreement. And we had snacks, we had just a little bit of fellowship. I had a devotional, and we had time of prayer. But then I tried to also include like 5-minute training moments. And the way that I found to be most helpful was just to bring in just a scenario. Okay, here is Molly in your class, and when you say for praises, she says, "Oh, I praise God that I'm going to have a second daddy soon. Like my daddy is going to marry another daddy, and I'll have 2 daddies soon." So like, okay, so here is the situation: a child's father is going to marry another man, and she's praising God for it. Like, how do you respond in a way that's truthful and graceful? And we just take the next 5 minutes. And then the next time it would be, okay, you are presenting a lesson and all electricity goes out. How do you respond? And so it was not a very lengthy training, but those were just hot, most important things that we knew we needed to be ready for. And like, it just was fun to interact, to engage, and many times conversation would carry over, and people would talk about it even later. So that's what I found to be the best. Just I already have them before class. We have allocated time. Let's see, it's not only inspirational but also educational. But we only have 5 minutes, so I would just bring. I called it the worst case scenario. I bring the worst case scenario. We put our heads, and then I draw the line. Okay, so here are 3 outcomes. So this is what I want you to take out of it.
Very interesting.
Steph, one thing that I did, because in my other life I'm a teacher, but I teach middle and high school, which is totally different than kids. So I had some friends that were elementary teachers, and I asked one to come in and like just give us like a quick rundown. What are your go-tos? Like what are your things that you do when you need to get their attention, when you're trying to correct behavior without interrupting the class? Just those little cues and stuff. And that was super helpful for especially my elementary small group leaders, because they do that on the daily and they are used to being around kids and that kind of thing. So I know probably most of you know someone or have someone. Just reach out to them, because I know they would love to be able to help out in any way and give you those little cues and hints that, and look kind of like a little micro kind of thing, where it's not like a whole huge kind of training, but they can give you a few little hints and stuff that'll help you out.
Oh, I love that, Travis. Great word. Anyone else want to jump in on that question?
I would
We-
just encourage you, like, oh, sorry, I don't know who else is talking. You
Go
can
ahead.
go.
You go, Kaylee. You go.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say, Paul, too, like, or for any of us, like, you know your ministry context better than anybody else too. So be confident in that. Like, know, like, if classroom management and those sorts of things, if you're having some issues with that, then do a training on that. But don't feel like you have to do that training just because somebody told you had to. Like, if that seems to be going well for you, then don't, shift and do something else that you think is needed. But and I would echo too, just like, I would say, be mindful of people's time, because we are asking a lot. And like, that's something I try to be conscious of too, is like, we are asking them to serve however many times they're serving. And so, just make sure, like, I wouldn't just have trainings for the sake of having trainings, just to like, hey, I'm training people every whatever amount of time. Like, if it's something important and needed, absolutely do that and make it fun and make it engaging. But don't feel like you just have to because you have to.
Yeah, we do ours. So like he the other gentleman, I'm sorry, can't say your name.
Or God?
Mentioned about doing the ones beforehand. We usually do ours after church, so people are there already, and we have lunch and we sit around and talk. And like I said, we're a small church anyway, so it's like No, when I say us, my team's like 8, 10 people maybe that stay. So, and we're all friends, and so it's good. But yes, I know what you mean about being respectful of their time as well. So, yes, thank you guys.
Great question.
Yeah, something I've done too. If it's not like a major policy, like safety or background checks or whatever, I've supplemented some trainings with videos. I'll record a video because then it's something they don't have to watch the video because I mean it's just me standing there talking to them, but they can pull it up and listen to it. When they're in the car, when they're whatever they're doing, they can just listen to the extra training things. So like we have like a camp store that we have here, and so like kids earn like fake money by saying their verse, bringing their Bible, bringing a friend, all that sort of stuff. Like that's not a big major training issue, but it's something like our team needs to know. So like I've sent that out in videos before. Hey, watch or listen to this video on our kids are on cash policy. That way it's not taking up any more of their time physically being there, and they can watch it um, at their leisure whenever. So that's something I've done to help supplement those things to not have a training, every single Sunday or every month or whatever.
Shelley,
But how do you post those, or where do you post those? Is that a YouTube thing or maybe
Google Drive.
Google
Yeah.
Drive? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you could do YouTube either, make it a private video, whatever. Yeah.
All right. Shelley, did you have something you wanted to ask?
No, I was just gonna jump in on that question. We have 6 we statements or so we call them for the classrooms, and those are our rules. So we are kind, we try our best, we respect our leader, like those things. And because our volunteers are volunteers and we have an hour a Sunday where they're trying to teach a lesson, I want them to focus on being teachers rather than class management people. And so I have in the volunteer manual like we have like a policy for repeat disciplinary issues. So the first time is we remind of the rules. Second time is they get down on their knee for a 2-second conversation with that student. Third is then they get me or whoever's in charge that day to take that child out of class to then have that conversation with them, and then we'll contact parents. So that's like our step by step. And I try to say like don't repeat your warnings, because when we repeat warnings with no consequences, then it doesn't actually do anything. So if we have to do 3 warnings, then that means okay, you're going to talk to Miss Shelley and you're going to go out of class, and that's going to happen. So yeah, so that's just what we do.
Do you make your parents aware of those 4 steps?
Everything that I suggest the leaders is available for parents. So they can have access to our volunteer manual. They can have access to all of that stuff. And it is on our sheet for the first time parents that they get when they sign up their kids for the first time. Most of our parents don't read any of this stuff. And like I over communicate all of the stuff that we have, and I send out all of our lessons to parents. They don't typically read it. But I've never once had a parent say, oh, I'm mad you did that. Like, thank you. It's usually a thanks for telling me, thanks for not disciplining my child. Like these things. So
And one last thing, those we statements, I love that. Can you tell us what they are?
yeah, and they're also in this handbook that I attached to.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, we can find it in there. I love that. That's great. And they're positive. Great conversation, y'all. So let's jump on, because we're at I don't want to take 5 hours of your time today. Let's talk a little bit about volunteer retention. So we've recruited them, we've trained them. Now, how do we keep them? So what does volunteer retention look like in your ministry areas? Do you have a tracking system? Do you use a plan? Like, what do you do to keep people? I mean, because, I think Dima talked a little bit about that early in the conversation, but I mean, we're struggling. I mean, no one's going to lie here. Like, we're struggling. So how do we do that?
There are 2 things that I did that I would say a secret sauce. one of them is provide them with the best snacks on Sunday morning. No, I'm joking, but actually some volunteers.
No, you're not.
I do serve because you provide peanut M&Ms. And that was a never-ending supply there. No, so yeah, snacks is a big deal. Also, like whenever I would give them like lesson plan, all the supplies were done for them, were waiting for them in the classroom. They only had to bring their heart and their Bible to class. And they really appreciated it because before me, they had to make trips to different stores and bring their own things, and that really bogged them down. But the two things that really, I think, retained my volunteers was number one, collecting stories. Like they want to be connected to a meaningful and significant work. Like they're giving up time with their family, with their friends. They're giving their energy, their life to us. Like, what can we give them in return? Obviously, peanut M&Ms is one of the things, but that won't keep them too long. But the stories of life change in children, like I found that was the glue. And so I created a template of email, and I would send it out to all the parents around March, because that's where volunteers are feeling maybe fatigue, like they've been serving since September. And normally around March, April, I was asking, what does the next school year look like for you? So I would send out an application. And so when we hit May, I already knew how many volunteers would be returning and how many not. So in March, I knew like they needed fresh fuel, fresh inspiration. So I would just send a mass email to all the families in the church and say, hey, 2 questions. What have you noticed God doing in and through your child, like since September? Have there been anything that you've seen like God do in or through your child? Would you please share? Like, I want to pass on these stories to our volunteers. And second, has any particular, we call our volunteers shepherds. Has any like particular shepherd had an impact on your child's life? Maybe something they said in class, something they did that really left an impact. Would you please share that with me? Okay. And once those stories come back to me, I did not like just forward them to the volunteers. No, they were too precious, too special. So for the next, let's say, 8, 9 Sundays, we had still left before the school year is over. In the morning, on Sunday morning, when we gathered together, like, hey, here is a story that came in from such and such family. And it would be just a time of celebration. But if they were experiencing fatigue and tiredness, thinking, you know what, I don't know if it's really worth it. I don't see any fruit from what I've been doing. Kids are crazy. I feel like I've spent half of my time just trying to get them to calm down. Like, oh, wow, God has been working. It's not in vain. Mm-hmm. So it's just number one, to celebrate God. Number two, to encourage volunteers. But number three, to say, hey, you may not see, but you are part of something greater and bigger. And some parents, they needed a couple of reminders. But once those stories start coming in, like that is like volunteers say, yes, I want to be a part of it. And another thing that I do, it's in the beginning of a school year, I sent out a questionnaire to all the parents saying, let's diagnose your child's spiritual health. Can you tell us where your child is at? And I give them like 10 options. Accepted Christ and is growing, was baptized, has a hardened heart, is skeptical, is asking a lot of spiritual questions, has no desire to go. Like I give them a lot of things because people don't like to think, but it's a lot easier for them just to check boxes. And then like, what are 2 or 3 challenges that your child is facing today? Because we as a church want to join you in helping them grow. Like, what are the things that your child is struggling? What are the challenges? And then the third question in that questionnaire, like, is there anything we can be praying for you and your child? And once those questions come in, my team sorts them out by ages, like preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way through fifth grade. And so when we have our fall kick-off before the school year, 30 minutes we spend together, nursery through fourth grade, but then we break them in age groups, and I give each age group results. This is like the look beneath the surface. This is what your children are dealing with. This is where they're at spiritually. And all of a sudden, it transforms a shepherd's view of a child. It's no longer just a name. It's no longer just a warm body in my classroom. It's no longer just a child that I'm playing a game with or telling a Bible story. Wow, there is a battle going on. Like, this is where they're at spiritually. These are the challenges. These are the prayer requests. And what it does, it helps them to see their role very seriously, that it's not just about going through the plan, welcome, worship, songs, snacks, Bible story, goodbye. It's actually, we are entering into discipling them and helping them heal or grow. So those two things have been extremely helpful, but it's been just me reaching out to parents, getting their feedback, organizing it, and just serving as a go between parents and shepherds. And it, so in the one in August energized them for the school year, and the one in March, okay, this is our final stretch. Let's tell stories. Let's tell stories. Maybe it will help you to say yes for the next school year as well.
Right to the heart of it. I love that.
Mhm.
Any other questions on volunteer retention that you have? I know there's a lot of questions we could ask about this.
Can I add something here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I love to, I think it was Kaylee that said we're shepherds of our people. So, just checking in with them so that every text or phone call they get from me isn't, hey, are you available to serve this Sunday?
Mhm.
But really letting them know that you care about them. I have, so like my volunteer care retention thing is kind of systematized, but every month a group of my volunteers gets a handwritten thank you note from me. So like January, it's my check-in team. So, it just goes down the list. But so they get one every month, but no one really gets mail anymore. So when you get a letter in the mail, it's special now. It's like someone actually had to take the time to write this, lick the nasty envelope, put it in the mail. So I love to send just thank you notes to my team. Hey, thanks for serving in, whatever, love all that you do. And I, incorporate some of that vision language in that thank you note as well. And then when we started the new year, I just typed up a simple like all about me sheet. Just has like, hey, what's your name? What's your favorite movie, book, candy, coffee, whatever, just a little bit like that. So then when I do celebrate them, I can celebrate them in a more personal way. Because if someone doesn't like Starbucks, why would I give them a Starbucks gift card? So it just helps me know, hey, here are some of their favorite things. And then it's fun to bring those up. Hey, you really like to knit. Tell me, like, what have you knit lately? Just adds that personal touch so they know, hey, they'd see me as a person, not just a volunteer. Um, and then another thing I do is, we schedule a planning center. So if I notice a volunteer declines like a bunch in a row, I always check in like, hey, notice you've declined the last, whatever. Is everything okay? Do you need prayer for anything? What's going on? Because you just never know what's going on. They could be busy. They could be out of town. Could a death, you just never know. So I'm just noticing those things, and then following up, not just, hey, why weren't you here? But hey, is everything all right? Making sure they know that you actually care about them as a person, not just a slot filler on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think relationships are everything.
I can,
Go ahead, Dima.
oh yeah, I just wanted to follow up with Trent. We actually took the questionnaire one step further. And for each one of my volunteers, I created almost like a letter-sized superhero card. So I had a female body superhero, male body, and we photoshopped everybody's photo inside. And then it was all like their favorite Bible verse, their birthday, their favorite snack, their favorite drink, their favorite, like all the favorites. And what I did, I posted those posters on a classroom door. So when like parents are dropping off first graders, they can see, oh, this is Mr. So-and-so, this is Miss So-and-so. Oh, look, she likes this NFL team, or she likes gummy worms, like favorite candy, whatever. And so there is now an instant connection, like an entry point. Hey, I love gummy worms too, or whatever. And so it helped, gave like access point for children to our shepherds, but also I would send an envelope with those cards printed with every family and say, hey, throughout the year, there is a birthday, there are things. Just if that person comes to mind, pray for them and just spontaneously encourage them. So basically, the information you got, Trent, I kind of amplified and passed it on to families and said, hey, when it just comes to your mind, just do it. They will appreciate a spontaneous gesture of kindness. So it's just an easy way to multiply that encouragement, because you might be busy at some point and they might receive that note or that encouragement from somebody else.
I was saying that relationships are everything. I don't know if I've said this in another call, but one of the things that a good friend of mine told me, and he uses this phrase, and I've kind of adopted it, is walk slowly through a room. And as a kids pastor, I didn't always do that because I had in my brain all of the things that I needed to do. And so, like, sometimes I overlooked families and overlooked kids and overlooked volunteers. And so, keeping that phrase in our minds, like, walk slowly through a room, like, who needs to have a conversation with us today? Making it about those relationships, like Trent and Demo were saying, like, are everything. If we can't build relationships and make our volunteers feel known, we can't do that for our kids either. So I'm a big believer in relationship building with our volunteers. And I think that has so much to do with care too. Like, we can jump into that next thing. I think we talked a little bit about that. Is there anything that anyone does, and it could be more than just our panelists, that you do that like rock your volunteers world, that like they know when you do this that you are caring for them, that they're just like, oh, like that was amazing?
Yeah, it's simple, but every one of my volunteer children, we mail a birthday card to every one of the volunteers. And when they get it, I get these. Sometimes I forget that because I have someone send them out every time, and they'll say, "Hey, that card was amazing." So little things like that. That's the little thing that I do, but I do it every birthday of every volunteer. And
Anything else?
I try not to do the same thing every year, but one year we did a volunteer appreciation dinner just for my kids' team, not for the whole. We just did a whole church one this past Sunday, but what I did with that was I had people who aren't on my team volunteer to make a part of the meal, and it was a home cooked meal that none of my leaders expected. And so when we got there, we did some games, had some prizes, but they had a fresh home cooked meal from other people in the church. And so that was really cool.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go to. Like, so two things that I thought about it. Well, three. Number one, like what Trent said, like bribe people with food. Like if you, and again, like every church is different, and I can't speak to that, but like fight for a line item in your budget to like pay for people's food. Like if you have a coffee or a lunch or something, like this is just me, but like the church should pay for that. Like to invest in them. Because if you buy somebody a free meal, it's like, oh, wow, that's really nice. So we bribe our volunteers with food, snacks, all the things like Demon was saying as well. Preparedness, I think, is a way to care for our volunteers too. Like Dima mentioned that earlier too. Like, I don't want my volunteers to come in and have to go somewhere to find glue sticks, or I don't want them coming in and, 7 3-year-olds are running around and they're trying to like cut out the little figures that are being glued to the paper. Like, am I perfect at it? No, but like, you're gonna get the lesson every week. You're gonna get communicated with. And I think those are ways to care for our volunteers too, because that way they just show up and they can just engage and have fun. But we do a volunteer appreciation night every year, and we do a whole church event, and it's grown just in like what we do. We've just put a lot of importance on it. And this past year, every church is different too, but our church is not, we just don't have a lot of tables and space and stuff. And so like we rented out a venue close to us and just got people off of our property. We catered the meal. It cost a lot of money, but then our staff is not having to prepare food or set out food. We pay for them to stay. And and then they clean it all up, which is beautiful. I'm like, I will pay for that out of my own pocket. We had silent disco, the camp near us. We have a great relationship with them. So we borrowed that. Like, this is not stuff we have. And we did not do any training that night. Like, they came in. Now, our pastor can't have something like that and not say anything, but we were like, Josh, you have like 5 minutes, like literally 5 minutes. And like he shared vision, he shared heart, and that stuff is important too. But it wasn't a training. It literally was just a night of fun to connect with other volunteers. We played Are You Smarter Than a Pastor, which was a terrifying idea because I did not want to answer any of those questions wrong.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it was awesome. I actually was the very last pastor picked, so it was beautiful. But we played that game and got people to laugh, and we did silent disco, and even like our older volunteers, I'm full of stories, but we have like an 80, 70, he's probably in his 70s. And we just like passed out the headphones to everybody. So at least like if they didn't want to be like on the dance floor, they could like just be sitting and listening and engaging. And he's literally sitting and listening to my channel, and I was playing like Justin Bieber, and he's just like bobbing his head to it, and he was 70, and it was wonderful. But like we have fun. And even that night, like everybody was leaving and we were stacking up chairs, and one of my volunteers said, well, why didn't you just tell us all to get a chair? Like, we could have helped y'all and y'all would have been done so much faster. And I'm like, because it's not about that tonight. We're not asking you to do anything. And he literally just kind of stepped back and stopped. And it was like this moment for me, like it was so like tiny of just like 2 sentences, but it was just this moment of like, no, like we're not asking you guys to do anything tonight. Like, this is all us as a staff thanking you for what you do. And we have year-end reports at that. And so we say like, hey, this is how many kids we reach. This is how many students we reach. This is how many app downloads we have. I mean, every department, like we come up with this thing and then we make goals for 2024. And so, it's fun. And it's like literally like one of our staff's favorite things of the year. And we do it in January because there's not as many sports and things. And there's not a lot in January and February of fighting for people's attention. So, yeah, anyway.
So good. Anything else?
So this last year, and I'm going to do it again because it was requested from my volunteers, but I included their family in our like Christmas celebration, and we'll do it again in the spring because most of the times, right, they may have kids of their own, so they have to take time, leave their kids at home to come and do a training or a celebration. And so we said, well, your family gives, like they sacrifice you, sitting with them in church or getting up early and that sort of thing. And so we did a family celebration, and I was like, we made them make their gift. It was like a hot chocolate jar or whatever, but they had fun. The kids got to do it. And so I was like, it was unintentional, but now it'll be very intentional. They just appreciated that I saw their family, as an extension of them and celebrated them as well. And so, so that will be something that we'll implement. It'll be a family. Families are invited when we celebrate our volunteers, so they can see their work as well. I'm also hoping that maybe that will recruit some spouses to serve with them and give me an extra volunteer too. So, well, who knows?
I love it.
So one of the things
go ahead, Dima.
I think one of the things that's more meaningful to our volunteers than we know is if we make it easy for the senior pastor or executive pastor to cross paths with them in a children's ministry turf. So because so many times children's ministry department feels like we're just like separate from everybody else. They just try and like they're doing the important stuff and we're just trying to stay out of their way. So I think as a children's pastor, you are an advocate for your volunteers. So if you invite your senior pastor, hey, can you just come and say a prayer of blessing like this morning over our team, or can you just come and like peek in every classroom, like whenever you're not preaching on Sunday, could you just like come and peek into every class and just say hi? Like it's amazing. It goes far with volunteers because like, wow, senior pastor knows me, sees me, appreciates me just by mere presence, just by walking the hall, just by peeking in, waving, saying hi, like, wow, what I do is important. So it's a little thing, but it is care.
Mm-hmm.
And many senior pastors would need to be coached. Some of them would what do I do? Like if they don't know what to do if they are not if they don't have a microphone sometimes. So like, hey, just yeah, you can just come in and interact with kids or just check in on volunteers. It will mean a ton to them.
I'm gonna give us about 2 more minutes. You
I
got
have
this.
one. I have
Comment?
one.
Yes.
Something we're trying next week for the first time is having an opportunity for prayer ministry for just our kids ministry volunteers. So we're having them come on a Wednesday night, and our prayer ministry team, our prophetic team is going to come and they can bring prayer requests. We're going to have some worship and just a time of just ministering to them and praying over them, whatever their concerns are. And we're just believing God will just give them an opportunity. It's a little more private. It's not like if they were to go, be in the worship center and needed prayer for something, they're going up front. That feels different, but this would just be with, people they know and they're safe with. And so our teams will be all together. And I feel like we're really going to understand even more where people are at and the needs that they're experiencing. And we're really believing too that God will bring some things, help them to, if they feel they want to share some things that maybe they've wanted prayer for or something that is just happening and they need prayer for. So we're kind of excited about that. We're not totally sure how it's going to go, and who's going to come. Like basically everyone's invited. We could have 5 people, we could have 50 people. We don't know, but so I'll be able to maybe share that with you some other time, how it goes. Yeah, I think I really believe God's going to just bless them and give them that opportunity to really be prayed over. So.
And when they're in a room together and sharing requests with each other that you don't have time for on Sunday morning, it creates this camaraderie that we share in each other's burdens. And so that's incredible. I can't wait to hear how that goes.
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys, this has been amazing. I wish I had a couple more hours because I have like 3 pages of questions, but I mean I don't want to cut anyone off. So like we'll take about 2 more minutes. Is there any pressing questions that are even outside of those 4 areas of volunteers? We want to kind of stay in the volunteer question world, but do you have anything else that you would like to ask or add to the conversation before we kind of wrap everything up?
Stephanie, one other thought I had on like the care stuff, because big events are coming up. Maybe you guys do egg hunts and stuff. And so one thing that like our volunteers really appreciate, and I don't know if you can work it in, but we do a VIP hunt for our volunteer kids. So like I ask all of our volunteers to be there at 2, and I do some like big event training parts. And then Literally it's only for volunteer kids. They get to come and we do like a preschool hunt and elementary hunt. And then that way the volunteers get to actually engage with their kids, and see them hunt, because like how many of them are stuck on an inflatable for the next 2 hours and they don't get to interact. And so a lot of like the husbands will come and they have family hunt together, and then whoever stays or grandparents even will then come pick up the kids and the parents will stay and serve. So it's been something that like just in a big event world, that has really meant a lot to our volunteers. It's just that they get to do that family ministry. Somebody else has mentioned that a second ago, that family stuff together. So that was just one other.
We always have people complain about that, and that's a great idea. Love it. Anyone else?
I probably stole it from somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. Don't recreate the wheel.
I don't know if this is necessarily a quick question, but I've got a fantastic volunteer, but she's also probably one of my more challenging ones. And so I mean, she's literally great in the classroom, but she's borderline violating some of our like handbook policies. So with that in mind, have you had to ask a volunteer to step away, and how do you fire a volunteer gracefully?
Anyone want to tackle that one?
I'll be honest and say I never have. So, I mean, like I'm not gonna sit here and like try to make up some answer for you because I haven't been there. So I'll be praying for you. I'm like, and I don't mean that disingenuine either. Like that, yeah, that's hard.
Lots of pre-conversations would be one of the big ones, having lots of conversations to lead up that so she sees things coming and know that she is loved, and see if there's any way that you can accommodate some of the rules she's breaking without her breaking them to accommodate her style. That's what I have fired some, more than one, and each one of them is different in how they react and how you deal with them. So one answer doesn't fit all, but big conversations beforehand and leading. I have one right now who I'd love to fire, but she's really good at what she does when she's there, but then she doesn't respond to me and talk. So I find that I have to accommodate some of her idiosyncrasies, because just like she has to accommodate some of mine, and she doesn't align perfectly with what I want and what I need sometimes. So I find, I mean, it's different. It's totally violating the, the handbook or the rules or whatever. That's different.
Yeah.
But lots of pre-conversations and how much she's loved.
It's not there, right?
I don't know if that's helpful, but
we'll talk.
Demo, did you want to add to that? I thought I heard you want to speak up. When
these are the conversations that we dread, and time will only make them harder the longer we wait. But I think like it has to be honesty mixed with curiosity. Like, here is what I see. Can you help me understand? Like, why? So we don't go with our rules and policy book as a sword, and like because she might have some reasons. It might be her personality, it might be her woundedness, it might be her, we don't know, there is a story behind it. So I think just to come like, you know what, you're more important to me as a person than even these rules. And on one hand, there is the tension, like I need to uphold these rules because it's the image of the church, the name, the good reputation, the example for other people. So things need to be straightened, but I care for you as a person. So I would just come from a position of curiosity, like, this is what I've observed. Like, can you help me understand what's behind it? And I think once you give, once a person feels that it's not a threatening conversation, that you are coming with humility and you really want to understand them and know, then they may open up, and maybe what you see on the surface is really not a problem. It's a symptom of something deeper. And you'll get a chance to minister to them on a more profound way. But I would say, I would not make it about policy and upholding things, but about a person and making them feel safe, and just like, I want to know you, like, this is what I see, what's behind it, and then go from there. Obviously, if it's like hitting children or calling them names, like it may be different, but without knowing the situation, like I would approach it with curiosity.
That's good.
And
Guys,
then, sorry, and I don't know if it is time to go. This could just be a general
fine,
question.
let's-
Just,
let's
do
finish.
you guys like go into your classrooms on a regular basis? Like, I'm just trying to think through, like you said, walk slowly through a room. Like, okay, so it would be helpful as I observe and kind of jump into those classrooms without feeling like I'm intruding, or because I have some leaders who will then just like stop and like wait for me to take over as I step in. I'm like, no, that is not why I'm here. Like, I'm here just to see the kids in action and see how you're doing, really it's not to see how they're doing. It's just to experience a classroom, and to see how I could support them, or ways to champion them. But does that work? Like just walking into a classroom in the middle of a service?
It never worked for me. My shepherds were intimidated by me. They felt I was spying on them. They also said like we esteem you so much and you're so good, like we feel like we are not doing as good of a job as you would have done. So my presence was intimidating to them. So I connected with I did my rounds in the beginning of every class before the formal teaching started, when they were just having icebreakers, table games, just connecting with kids. So it was low key, very relational, just checking, finding out how the week went, just checking in on them. But what I did during the class, I instead would walk slowly through the halls of the church and instead connect with parents and just say, what are your stories? What are your kids going through? So that was more fruitful to me, to connect with the parents than with the volunteers, because they looked at me as intimidating force.
And it would be the complete opposite for me. If I don't come and pop my head in, they're like, where's Liz? So like hallway and shove my head in and always with a big smile and what's going on. And I guess I also blow in like I'm a big party and like, how you doing? And hey guys. So they always know to come to the door. They all come to the door. The kids, oh, hey, Pastor Liz is here. Come on in. So if they invite me in, I go in. If they don't invite me, I don't necessarily. Often the 4-year-old room, I will go in because they invite me in often. But I believe party and just, hey, how you doing? I hang over, then talk to the children. So if I don't show up, they actually like, where's Pastor Rose? I haven't seen her for a little while. But anyway, so it's very different from both of our experiences and your context of where you are. But I always pop around in all of mine and find it very valuable. And that's actually when I actually ask some questions to my volunteers, how you doing? I find out from Natalie, her husband just died, and I found out from so-and-so that her son, like that's where I actually find out a lot of my questions on a Sunday morning during church, when I pop in my head and say, how you doing, kind of thing, and in person, and let me stop and pray with you right then. So, but I also walk around like I'm a big party, so it does.
Yeah, I like to pop in to all my rooms too on a Sunday morning. But I do try to be strategic if they're doing like a game, a craft, or whatever. Because I always like to ask the kids, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Because then it's not so much of like I'm coming to check on the volunteer or whatever, but it's like I'm just coming to be a part of what's going on. And then it gives the kids time to be like, oh, we're playing this game, and then you can ask them questions like, hey, why are you playing this game? Or I'll do I would say the same thing. I'm like a big party. Like I'll play the game wrong on purpose. And then they all laugh at me and be like, no, you're doing it wrong. Or I'll make like the craft wrong, whatever, just so they can have that fun and be like, no, you're doing it wrong, Pastor Trent. Like, come on. But so I do like to pop around, but I am strategic so the volunteers don't feel intimidated, or I don't think they do, but it's just a better time. It's less distracting when it's during a game or a craft or whatever than when they're in the middle of the story.
Everything has been incredible today. We're about at almost 2:25, and so I want to just make sure to respect your time. But um, I would suggest, like, I think on calls like this, we kind of get bombarded with all these different ideas. So grab a hold of one or two or three and see how you can use that in your ministry area. If you have further questions for people that did talk on the call today and you want their contact information, I'm happy to give that to you. I think everybody would be happy to offer that to you. So kind of grab hold of what's helpful for you. And these moments that I wish that we all lived really close so we could get in a room and just hang out, Like, I'm not a big Zoom fan, but at the same time, like, this has been really helpful today. I hope it's been helpful for you all. So next week we have another cohort, same time, same place, same link. Sorry about the change up in the link at the last minute. Next week is on kid engagement, kid retention, and growing pain. So those were some of the topics that came out of our fall cohort. So we'll work through those conversations and bring some questions to the table. Invite another kids pastor to join us, and hopefully we'll have a great turnout next week. So thank you guys so much for being a part. I hope that it was helpful for you all. Yes. Yay. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week. You guys take care. Bye-bye.
I